Stop drinking from your tap tonight if you haven't checked one thing, because what's swimming in America's water supply right now sent over 7,000 people to the emergency room last summer, and almost nobody is talking about it. I'm a physician, and for the last 2 decades, I've treated patients who came to me after their vacation, after their grandkids' pool party, after what they thought was just a stomach bug turned into 10 days of explosive, watery diarrhea that left them dehydrated, weak, and in some cases, hospitalized. There's a parasite called Cryptosporidium, we call it crypto for short, and according to the Centers for Disease Control's own surveillance reports, outbreaks linked to this single organism have increased by nearly 25% over the last decade, with treated recreational water, meaning pools, water parks, and splash pads, responsible for the majority of documented cases. This isn't some rare tropical illness. It is living in municipal water systems, splash pads, lakes, and yes, sometimes even properly treated tap water right now in your town. And here's the part that should really get your attention. This parasite has a shell so tough that ordinary chlorine, the same chlorine that kills almost every other germ in your pool or your water treatment plant, barely touches it. It can survive for days in chlorinated water. That's why outbreaks spread through public pools and splash pads so efficiently. I'll explain exactly why that shell is so dangerous, and more importantly, exactly how to protect yourself in just a few minutes. But before we dive in, I want to know something about you. Tell me in the comments how old you are right now, and tell me this. Have you ever had a stomach illness after swimming, traveling, or drinking water somewhere new that lasted far longer than it should have? I read every single comment on this channel, every one, and I want to know your story because the answers you give me shape exactly what I cover in future videos. Now, here's why this matters more the older you get, and I want to tease this now because it's the single most important thing in this entire video. Item number 1 on my list today isn't a supplement or a filter. It's a habit almost nobody over 60 practices correctly. And when I explain it, you're going to realize you've probably been doing it wrong your entire life. Stick around because I'm building up to it, from the least powerful protective step to the most powerful. And by the time we get to number 1, you'll understand why your grandmother's generation almost never got this sick and why we do. Let's talk about why this parasite is so uniquely dangerous for those of us over 60. When you're young, your gut lining is like a brand new brick wall, tightly mortared, hard for anything to get through. But after 60, and especially after 70, that wall develops gaps. Researchers studying age-related changes in intestinal permeability have found that the protective mucus layer lining your gut can thin by as much as 30% compared to what you had at 40. Combine that with a naturally slower immune response, what researchers call immunosenescence, meaning your immune system soldiers respond slower and with less force to new invaders, and you have a body that simply cannot fight off crypto the way it could decades ago. On top of that, once explosive diarrhea starts, an older body loses fluids and electrolytes far faster and recovers far slower, because kidney function that filters and rebalances those electrolytes has often declined by 30 to 40% by age 70. That's why what knocks a 30-year-old down for a day and a half can put a 75-year-old in the hospital on IV fluids for a week. So today, I'm going to walk you through my countdown, 5 protective strategies ranked from least powerful to most powerful, the exact list I give my own patients and my own family members, so you can walk away from this video today and actually change your risk. Let's start at number 5. Number 5, knowing exactly where the danger is actually hiding, because it is almost never where you think. Most people assume the risk is drinking straight from a lake or a river, and while that's true, the surprising research finding is that the majority of documented crypto outbreaks in the last several years trace back to treated recreational water, hotel pools, water parks, splash pads, and public spas, not untreated wilderness water. A CDC review of waterborne outbreak data found that treated recreational water accounted for the largest share of reported cases, more than untreated lakes, rivers, or private wells combined. The reason is simple once you understand it. Think of a swimming pool's chlorine system, like a security guard checking IDs at the door. Chlorine is excellent at stopping bacteria and viruses, the equivalent of stopping someone without any ID at all. But Cryptosporidium has a hard outer shell called an oocyst that acts like a full disguise, a fake ID that fools the guard completely. It can survive in properly chlorinated water for over 7 days. Why does this matter more for an aging body? Because many of us in the 60-plus crowd are precisely the demographic visiting water parks and pools with grandchildren, taking water aerobics classes at the senior center, or soaking in hotel hot tubs on vacation, all higher-risk environments we don't think twice about. Combine frequent pool exposure with that thinner gut lining I mentioned and a slower immune response, and the odds shift against you. Practically speaking, here's what I tell my patients. Avoid swallowing any pool, hot tub, splash pad, or lake water. Keep your mouth closed underwater, and if you or a grandchild has had any diarrhea in the past 2 weeks, stay out of shared pools entirely, since that's exactly how outbreaks spread person to person through water. For timing, the highest risk periods are late summer months, June through September, when public pool attendance and outbreak reports both peak. As a synergy tip, pair pool avoidance awareness with checking your local health department's website. Many now post real-time beach and pool advisories, so you know before you go, not after you're already sick. Number 4, rethinking your ice and your restaurant water, especially when you travel. Here's a claim that surprises almost everyone I tell it to. A widely cited food safety review found that ice made from municipal water sources was involved in a meaningful share of travelers' diarrhea cases because ice-making machines are cleaned far less frequently than people assume, and freezing does not kill Cryptosporidium, it only pauses it. Think of freezing like putting the parasite into hibernation. The moment it hits your warm gut, it wakes right back up, fully capable of causing illness. For an aging digestive system, this matters enormously because stomach acid, your body's first line of chemical defense against ingested parasites, naturally weakens with age. Research on gastric physiology in older adults shows stomach acid production, technically called gastric pH regulation, can decline significantly by your 70s, especially if you take common medications like proton pump inhibitors for acid reflux, which many of my patients over 65 do. Lower stomach acid means fewer of these parasites get neutralized before they ever reach your intestines. My practical advice, when traveling, especially internationally, or to areas with older municipal infrastructure, request drinks without ice, or ask specifically whether ice is made from filtered water. At restaurants, this one small habit change removes a surprisingly large chunk of exposure risk. For timing, be extra cautious during and immediately after regional flooding or water main breaks. That's when local health departments most often issue boil water advisories because infrastructure damage lets contaminated water mix with the treated supply. As your synergy tip here, pair ice caution with carrying a small bottle of activated charcoal water purification tablets when traveling. They're inexpensive. Pack flat in a suitcase and give you a backup water source if you're ever unsure about tap water quality in a hotel or rental. Now, before I give you numbers 3, 2, and 1, and trust me, they get more important from here, I need to ask a favor. If you found this information valuable so far, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like right now. I say this every video, but I mean it. This channel only reaches other people your age, other people who need this exact information. When the algorithm sees engagement, it costs you nothing, it takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps me keep making these videos free for everyone. All right, let's get into the 2 most important items on this list. Number 3, rebuilding your gut's natural defenses before you're ever exposed. Here's something most doctors never explain clearly. Your gut isn't just a tube, it's actually your largest immune organ, containing what researchers estimate is nearly 70% of your entire immune system's activity. Think of your gut lining like a castle wall and the trillions of good bacteria living there, what's called your microbiome, as the archers standing on top of that wall, firing at invaders before they ever get inside. A study on aging and gut microbiome diversity found that by age 70, the diversity of protective bacterial species in the gut can decline by as much as 40% compared to a healthy 30-year-old's gut. Fewer diverse bacterial species means fewer archers on that wall, and a much easier path for a parasite like Cryptosporidium to take hold and multiply. Here's why this hits older adults so specifically hard. It's not just about diversity dropping, it's about a phenomenon called anabolic resistance, meaning your body becomes less efficient at using nutrients to rebuild and repair tissue, including the delicate cells lining your intestines. Combine a less diverse microbiome with a body that's slower to repair gut tissue damage, and you have a digestive system that's simply less equipped to fight back once exposed. Practically, I recommend patients focus on fermented foods, plain yogurt with live active cultures, kefir, sauerkraut, and kimchi several times a week because these introduce beneficial bacterial strains directly. I also recommend a daily intake of soluble fiber, found in oats, beans, and cooked vegetables, aiming for roughly 25 to 30 grams a day, because soluble fiber acts as food for those beneficial bacteria, what scientists call a prebiotic. For timing, consistency matters more than any single dose. Aim to have at least one fermented food serving daily, ideally with breakfast, when your gut is most receptive to new bacterial colonization after the overnight fast. As a synergy tip, pair fermented foods with a source of polyphenols found in berries, green tea, and dark chocolate. Research suggests polyphenols help beneficial gut bacteria thrive even more effectively, essentially giving your archers better arrows. I want to tell you about a patient of mine, Carol, 74 years old, from a small town outside Sacramento. Carol came to me after a truly miserable 10-day bout of explosive diarrhea she picked up, we believe, from a hotel hot tub during a family reunion. She lost 12 pounds, ended up on IV fluids twice, and told me afterward she felt like her body had aged 5 years in 5 days. We worked together over the following months on rebuilding her gut health with fermented foods and fiber, and on a trip the following year to visit her grandchildren, she was exposed again. Her daughter came down with the same bug from the same pool, but Carol never got sick at all. She calls it her invisible shield, and honestly, that's not a bad way to think about it. Number 2, understanding hydration and electrolytes before you ever get sick, not after. This is where most people make their biggest mistake, and it's a mistake that can genuinely become dangerous for someone over 65. When explosive diarrhea hits, your body isn't just losing water, it's losing critical electrolytes, sodium, potassium, and magnesium at a rapid rate. A clinical review of dehydration-related hospital admissions found that adults over 65 accounted for a disproportionately large share of emergency visits related to diarrheal illness, largely because dehydration in older bodies progresses faster and causes more severe complications, including dangerous drops in blood pressure and, in some cases, kidney injury. Why does this happen so much faster after 60? Your kidneys, which act like a finely tuned filtration and rebalancing system, similar to a water treatment plant for your own bloodstream, become less efficient with age. Research on renal aging shows kidney filtration capacity, what's measured as glomerular filtration rate, can decline by 30 to 40% by your mid-70s compared to your 40s. A slower filtration system means your body struggles to rebalance sodium and potassium quickly once you start losing them through diarrhea, which is exactly why seniors decompensate so much faster than younger adults with the identical illness. My advice here is simple, but it saves lives. Keep an oral rehydration solution at home before you ever need it, not after. You can buy pre-made oral rehydration packets at any pharmacy, or make your own with 6 level teaspoons of sugar and half a teaspoon of salt dissolved in a liter of clean water. At the very first sign of watery diarrhea, begin sipping small amounts every 15 minutes rather than trying to drink a large amount all at once, since a rapid diarrheal illness can overwhelm your gut's ability to absorb larger volumes quickly. For timing, don't wait until you feel severely dehydrated. That's often too late. Begin rehydration therapy from the very first loose stool. As a synergy tip, pair your rehydration solution with a small amount of banana or plain rice once you can tolerate food. Both are naturally rich in potassium and help replace what you're losing far faster than water alone. I think of my patient Frank, 68, from a suburb outside Phoenix. Frank got hit with crypto after a family trip to a water park with his grandkids. He told me he assumed it was just a bug and tried to push through it with plain water alone. By day 3, he was so weak he could barely stand. His blood pressure had dropped to dangerously low levels, and he ended up in the emergency room requiring IV fluids for 2 days. Frank tells everyone now, "I thought water was water. I didn't understand I needed to replace what I was actually losing." He keeps rehydration packets in his kitchen cabinet permanently now, right next to the aspirin. And now, number 1, the item I promised you at the beginning of this video, the habit almost nobody over 60 practices correctly, even though it is by far the single most powerful thing you can do. Number 1, proper hand washing technique, and I mean truly proper technique, not the quick rinse most of us grew up doing. Here's the statistic that should genuinely shock you. Research on hand hygiene compliance found that even among adults who believe they wash their hands thoroughly, actual observed hand washing duration averages under 10 seconds, far short of the recommended 20 seconds needed to physically dislodge resistant organisms like Cryptosporidium oocysts from skin. And here's the critical detail almost nobody knows. Alcohol-based hand sanitizers, the ones we've all become so reliant on since the pandemic, are largely ineffective against Cryptosporidium's tough outer shell. Think of that oocyst shell like a knight's armor. Alcohol sanitizer is like throwing water at the armor. It simply doesn't penetrate. Only mechanical friction, meaning actual scrubbing with soap and water, physically breaks that armor down and washes it away. This is why proper hand washing matters so disproportionately for those of us over 60. It's not just about hand hygiene in the moment, it's about the cascade that follows. Diminished tactile sensation in aging hands, a natural consequence of slower nerve conduction, means many older adults simply don't feel food particles or contamination remaining on their skin the way they did decades earlier. Combine that with arthritis affecting nearly half of adults over 65, which makes thorough scrubbing between fingers and around nail beds physically uncomfortable, and you have a generation that on average washes hands less thoroughly than younger adults, precisely when their weakened gut lining and slower immune response can least afford it. Here's exactly how I tell my patients to do it properly. Wet your hands first with warm water, apply soap, and then scrub for a full 20 seconds. That's roughly the time it takes to hum Happy Birthday through twice, paying deliberate attention to the backs of your hands, between each finger, and around your nails. Since research on hand contamination patterns shows these exact areas retain the highest concentration of missed organisms during typical quick washes. Rinse thoroughly and dry with a clean towel, since damp hands actually transfer organisms more easily than dry ones. For timing, the moments that matter most are before eating or preparing food, after using the bathroom, after handling raw produce that may have been rinsed in contaminated water, and critically, immediately after swimming or any recreational water exposure, before you touch your face, a snack, or a shared surface. As your synergy tip, keep a nail brush by every sink in your house. Gently scrubbing under your nails specifically targets the exact spot where oocysts are most likely to hide undetected. And pair this with trimming nails slightly shorter than you might normally prefer, since shorter nails simply give contaminants fewer places to lodge. I want to close with a story that I think about often. My patient Dolores, 79, from a small community outside Tucson, came to me after her second hospitalization in 18 months from severe diarrheal illness, both times traced back to exposure during her weekly water aerobics class at the community pool, a class she loved and refused to give up. Dolores told me she felt like her body was becoming a stranger to her, unpredictable, fragile, something she no longer trusted. We worked through this exact list together, rebuilding her gut health, keeping rehydration solution on hand, being smarter about pool exposure, and most importantly, relearning proper hand washing technique after every single class. That was 3 years ago. Dolores still attends water aerobics every single week. She hasn't had a single episode since. She told me last month, I got my confidence back. I stopped being afraid of my own body. And that, honestly, is what this entire video comes down to. This isn't really about a parasite in the water. It's about something much bigger. Your independence, your ability to travel, to swim with your grandchildren, to live your life without constantly bracing for the next stomach illness to knock you off your feet for a week. Getting sick after 65 isn't just inconvenient the way it was at 30. It can mean a hospital stay, a loss of strength you may not fully get back, a step toward dependence you never asked for. But here's what I want you to hold on to as you close this video today. None of this is inevitable, and it is never too late to rebuild your body's defenses, strengthen your gut, and relearn habits that protect you for decades to come. Quality of life in your 70s, 80s, and beyond isn't something that just happens to you. It's something you can actively protect, one informed decision at a time. All of the research and studies I referenced today are linked down in the description below, so you can read them yourself and share them with anyone you love who needs to hear this. If this video gave you something valuable today, do me a favor and subscribe, because I put out new information like this every single week, specifically for people who want to stay strong, independent and healthy well into their 80s and beyond. And I want to leave you with one question for the comments. What's one health habit from your parents' or grandparents' generation that you think we've completely lost today and that we should probably bring back? I'll be reading every single answer, and I might just make a video about it. I'll see you in the next one.